And hello to you all. Saturday afternoon. Good to see everybody out there. 22nd of June 2019. I don't know what the weather's like where you guys are, but here in North Carolina, it is pouring down rain. So hopefully we won't have any electrical disruptions or anything and knock the stream out. Good to see everybody tuning in. Chris Torelli. Chris Torelli out there is like the speed at which he gets his messages up when I post a new video. I think I've even asked him in the past, are you if he's some kind of bot? But there he is in the stream. He's a real guy. He's just lickety split fast. All right, everybody. Good to see you all. We've got Eagle Eyes helping out as moderator. Good to see you, buddy. And to the rest of you chiming in from around the world, welcome, welcome, welcome. What is going on in the world unites us all. Doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you're a U.S. citizen. Doesn't matter if you're Canadian, Mexican. Doesn't matter if you're over in Europe, China. Who cares where you are? If world war breaks out, it affects all of us. Even if regional wars break out, it affects all of us. So that's why I really love to be able to talk to an international audience when we do these live streams. So let's jump in, I guess. I want to talk with you all. And by the way, let me put it in the chat here. Since YouTube took away the ability to give super chats or do the channel memberships or whatever, you can click on this link I just put in the chat to streamlabs.com/endtimesnewsreport. Mods, you can put that back in the chat from time to time. That is where you can go if you want to make a donation during the show. And I am going to be acknowledging everybody who makes a donation, whether it's through paypal.me/endtimesnewsreport, Patreon, wherever. Somewhere during the show, I'm going to make sure and acknowledge you guys for your support. I sincerely appreciate it. In fact, I'm going to switch over here because I think that, I don't know if the Streamlabs tool will work or not, but I think that if you make a donation, it'll show up here. We'll see. All right, well, let's talk about this Iran situation. If you haven't seen it already, I will be playing during this stream some of the footage, some of the clips from Tucker Carlson's great slam dunk on John Bolton that he did either last night or 2 nights ago. I don't remember, but it was a great piece, really great piece. Good to see somebody on Fox News hitting out against these Zionists, the NeoCon warmongers like Bolton. Not an easy thing to do. Clearly, they've got Sean Hannity totally on their side. So it is good to have Tucker Carlson's voice out there on this. So I'm going to start out. Let me show you just a couple of things here. This march to war, this crazy drum beat. So this is the Wall Street Journal. This one is from Tuesday. Iranians threaten to break nuclear accord. And I don't know if you can read that little subtext there. It says, Trump orders another 1,000 troops to Middle East after Tehran's warning on uranium. You know, they make it sound like Iran is the bad guy here. Oh, Iran did something bad. They're threatening to make nuclear weapons or something. And so Donald Trump, you know, he's going to respond by sending 1,000 troops out there to protect the world, make the world safe from Iran. It's just ridiculous. If you are, so you can retain this stuff in your head, you may remember it was May of last year when Donald Trump chose to pull the United States out of the Iran deal. And, you know, we all saw this coming. It's not like it was like, oh, what happened? We didn't see it coming. But what was kind of unique about it when Donald Trump, back in May of 2018, when he withdrew from the Iran deal, the timing of his announcement was very curious. and I reported about it back at that time, because what had happened was there was a day that everyone was expecting he was going to come out and make this announcement, but he delayed it. And he timed the announcement of the USA withdrawing from this Iran deal. He tied it to another event. You know what that event was? It was major Israeli air assaults against Iranian forces in Syria. So clearly what Donald Trump was doing was he was coordinating U.S. policy with the state of Israel and their geopolitical actions. So it's not conspiracy theory to suggest that America, right now at least, and Israel are inseparably linked with our politics. Now, consider this, guys. If it was any other country, would there not be some outrage? And I don't mean just from a select group of us, but like the general public. If we knew that major U.S. policies were being made for, I don't know, pick a country, for Kazakhstan, or for any country, for France. If it turns out that France is doing something and U.S. policy just happens to fall in line with what France is trying to do, and you've got all these connections between the President of the United States and France. The President of the United States, his daughter-in-law, or his daughter is married to a French man, to a French citizen. His whole administration is brimming with people from France, and all of his policies are geared toward helping France with their kind of militaristic, colonialistic, geopolitical activities. Wouldn't you stop and say, wait a second, we're not the United States of France, we're the United States of America, let's act like it. So Donald Trump pulling out of this Iran deal was, it was a major thing. And it was a major thing because of the international ramifications. It wasn't just that this is some deal between the United States and Iran. This was an international deal. You've got, so when Donald Trump announces, that's it, we're withdrawing, you had the top leaders of the United Kingdom criticizing the United States. You had the leaders of Germany and of France and of basically all of the nuclear powers that were a part of this. The Iran deal was basically an anti-proliferation agreement. And so you've got all of these countries, all these other signatories to this deal saying, whoa, wait a second, United States, you're not the only one here. You're trying to sabotage a deal that the entire international community is a part of. So, but, screw them, right? That's the attitude. Screw them. We're the United States of America. We'll do whatever we want. And I agree with that in principle. We don't have to do what another country tells us to do. But that's the point, is that we're not doing it because it's what's best for America. We're doing these things because it's what's best for Israel. And that's the problem. So last May, when Donald Trump says, all right, we're gonna pull out of this Iran deal, President Rouhani, the Iranian President Rouhani, he says, all right, look, here's how we're going to handle it. For right now, we're going to stay in this deal. As long as we can come to an understanding with the other members, the other signatories to this deal, as long as there is an understanding and we can continue to derive the benefits from this deal that are, fair and equitable, then we'll stay in the deal. Who cares what the United States does? We will abide by it. But if what Rouhani said was, if it turns out that the negotiations and the consultations with the other partners in this deal turn out to be fruitless, then he said, here's how it's going to work. We're going to start enriching uranium again. And he said, look, we can have weapons-grade uranium within weeks. So understand, the ball is in your court. And really, Europe did try, Europe and some of the other nations, they did try. The problem was that the U.S. response wasn't just withdrawal. It was a massive economic war that was crippling Iran's economy. And so for Iran to stay in this deal, for it to not be totally one-sided, Iran would have to have relief from sanctions. That was what the deal was. Relief from sanctions in exchange for them abiding by the requirements of the deal. But if the sanctions are going to be put back in place or even increased, why would they uphold their end of the deal? So Europe, for a while, they tried to figure out, how can we keep them in this? How can we keep Iran in this deal? Because Donald Trump is totally screwing them. And so they're looking at, well, can we increase economic packages to Iran to offset the loss from the United States? But the United States started twisting everybody's arm. Donald Trump said, here's how it's going to go, Europe and everybody else. If you try and help Iran get relief from the sanctions that we are placing on them, we're going to start sanctioning you too. And so Europe is like, what can we do? United States economy is too big. The U.S. taxpayer bails out the rest of the world, or at least the central bank, the Federal Reserve, bails out the rest of the world and gives us the bill, which we'll never be able to pay off. But that's the idea. So the problem was that this was never about trying to keep Iran from developing nuclear weapons. This has always been, going back before Trump. Don't think I'm blaming Trump for this, like this is all his fault. They have been building toward war with Iran for a long time. And Donald Trump, when he was brought in, clearly Trump's a Zionist. Everyone knows he's a Zionist. He's a globalist. He has used the words, I am a globalist. He says, I'm a globalist and a nationalist, but you can't be both. That's like saying I'm a Democrat and a Republican. You're one or the other. They're two competing philosophies. You can't be a conservative, a fiscal conservative, and a fiscal liberal at the same time. So Trump is saying, look, I want out of this deal. The problem was Donald Trump's top diplomat, the top person carrying out diplomacy for the United States, negotiations, trying to keep things on a peaceful level, is the Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State was, oil tycoon Rex Tillerson. The problem was that Tillerson, along with everybody else except for this little cabal of Zionists, Zionist neocons around Trump, everybody is telling Trump, don't back out of this. Don't do it. This will be a fiasco. It will lead us toward war with Iran. Don't do this. Well, Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, the one who has to, whoever the Secretary of State is, they've got to be out there front and center pushing whatever it is the president's agenda is, the foreign policy agenda. Tillerson privately, though, is telling Trump, I don't like this. I don't like it. This is bad. So what does Trump do when somebody crosses him? He fires him. And you may remember the story of, poor Rex Tillerson got the message that he had just been fired by the president while Tillerson was sitting on the toilet. Anyway, I don't want to think too much about that. But the problem here is that the deal was never made in good faith by certain parties. Iran was abiding by the deal. If the USA backs out of these deals, here's what Tillerson's point to Trump was this. The United States negotiated this. We formed a compact with not only Iran, but these other nations. We gave our word. as a nation that we would do this. There is a way to get out of the deal that is, reasonable or, diplomatic. But to just unilaterally say, screw this, I'm going to tear it up and come up with a better deal that I like more. The message that sends to the international community is the United States cannot be trusted. If the United States breaks its promises to the other parties that are doing everything they're supposed to, if the United States says, we will do this if you do this, and this party is doing this, and the USA says, screw that, we're not doing our part, then you lose the United States as a nation loses its credibility. Who wants to play, if you guys are playing card games and you've got a guy who every single time he comes in, he sits down and he cheats. He's pulling cards out of his sleeve. This guy's a cheater. He gets caught cheating. Are you going to keep bringing him back, especially if he's got a pretty good record at screwing you out of money because you just can't catch him cheating often enough? Or are you going to say, you know what, we've caught you cheating. We don't trust you. You say that this time it's going to be different, but we've caught you too many times. You've cheated us. You don't get to come back and play cards with us. We don't trust you. It's the same thing when it comes to geopolitics, when it comes to foreign policy. If the United States breaks its promises, if we lie, cheat, or steal, if we screw the other members of a deal, they are not going to trust us. Now, maybe going forward, we're the United States. They've got to kind of kowtow to us and at least, make it seem like they're being subservient and obedient. But that the first chance that they have to stab us in the back, they will. Because it's just not fair. Nobody likes to be taken advantage of. Not on an individual level, not on a national level. And we are the bully on the block. So Trump fires Tillerson. And then what Donald Trump does, which was very telling, is he takes the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, Mike Pompeo, and he installs Pompeo as the new Secretary of State. Which, again, if you understand how all this works, how the New World Order functions together, it was a very clear sign of the direction that things were going. The Central Intelligence Agency was created from the OSS. The OSS was kind of like the CIA during World War II. Immediately after they create the CIA, you've got the, Allen Dulles and all the intrigue there. But the CIA was created to be the enforcement arm of the Council on Foreign Relations. The Council on Foreign Relations is a non-governmental think tank. It is a roundtable group. It is basically a think tank that takes the agenda of the Rothschild cartel, the bankers, codifies it, takes it, writes it into policy, and gives it to the U.S. State Department to implement. Now, you have to have somebody to enforce these policies, right? So that's the job of the CIA. Originally, these globalists, they used Woodrow Wilson, President Wilson, to create the League of Nations. League of Nations sucked. There was nothing that could back it up. It was toothless. So okay, we learned a lesson from that. You got to give teeth to these things. And so they create the CIA. The CIA is to enforce the instructions from the Rothschilds given through this Council on Foreign Relations to the U.S. State Department, dictated to other countries. The president is just along for the ride. He's the puppet, the flavor of the month. So we get this CIA director who is put in charge of the State Department, the top diplomat, totally loyal to Israel, pro-Israeli Zionist. And the first speech that Pompeo gives as Secretary of State is he goes to visit this NeoCon Zionist think tank called the Heritage Foundation. And he goes and he gives a speech and he tells the Heritage Foundation, guess what? Even though Iran has complied 100% with the terms of the Iran deal, and the Iran deal, by the way, is known as the JCPOA. Even though they're complying, the United States is going to wage an all-out economic war, and we're going to destroy Iran. That's the message that he gave the Heritage Foundation. Thank you. Appreciate it. And that's exactly what the Trump administration has done. The Trump administration, after it pulled out of the Iran deal, rolled out the greatest economic sanctions attack in history. No nation has been beaten by the United States with these sanctions in the way that Iran has. Remember, Iran is a party that, why do we hate them so much? What is it that makes the Zionists and the NeoCons, why do we hate Iran so much? What is it that they've ever done? Well, think about it. Iran is a party that has not threatened the United States. They're not a threat to us militarily. They're not a threat to us at all. But they are a nation that does not go along with the Rothschild central banking system. That's the first strike against them. And we saw what was done to Gaddafi in Libya. You know, the central bankers don't like it if you don't get it on their system, because how can they make money if you are not playing by their rules? If you don't use their monopoly money in their system, they have no power over you. So that's strike one against Iran. Strike two is Iran nationalized their own oil. Heaven forbid a nation should take the resources, the profits from their own resources, and feed it back into their country to benefit their own people. How dare they? So the Western oil corporations were booted out by Iran. The predecessor to BP, to British Petroleum, used to control the oil in Iran. Iran kicked them out. So the CIA in 1953 overthrew Iran and installed a puppet. And that puppet, the Shah, he turned around and he gave the oil, control of the oil, back to the Western oil corporations. 1979, you have the Iranian Revolution, where they kicked the Western puppet out and they renationalized the oil. And that's how it's been to this day. And of course, the very next year, 1980, is when we had our CIA asset, Saddam Hussein, kick off that brutal, bloody 8-year war against Iran. But I don't want to get into that. So strike two is Iran is not giving our Western oil corporations money. And of course, these Western oil corporations, especially the Rockefeller oil cartel, they are subservient to the overall Rothschild syndicate. So that's strike two. Here is strike three. Israel has its ambitions in the region, the Greater Israel Project. They want to expand their territory. They want to take large sections of Jordan. They want to retake the Sinai Peninsula, which they did back in 1967 and had to give it up. They want to further encroach into Syria. They've already got Syria's Golan Heights. They want to go and take more of it. They want to take Lebanon. And of course, they want to push all of the Palestinians out of, so there's no Arab presence there. So it's geopolitical expansion, territorial expansion in the region. That's strike three, because Iran stands in the way of that. So we've got the U.S. State Department, we've got our Congress, we've got our intelligence agencies, we've even got our military that is doing the bidding of this Zionist cabal. And they're not only Zionists. I rag on the Zionists all the time, and they very much deserve it. But it's not just the Zionists. There are a lot of different interests that have their hands in this cookie jar. This is a bunch of mafia thugs from different families, all doing these things, collaborating together for mutual gain. They're not all Zionists, but clearly the Zionists are the ones that have the majority share, the majority stake in this corporate monstrosity. So economic sanctions were a precursor to knocking off Iran. You're not going to knock off the Persians with just sanctions. It's got to turn into a hot war. There's no way. The CIA has tried repeatedly using the MEK, which is a terrorist group inside of Iran. They've tried using the MEK to stage uprisings to get the people to rise up against the mullahs, the Ayatollah, and that hasn't worked. So the only thing that's going to work, sanctions haven't worked, nothing works. You've got to have a hot war. You've got to have the military go in and take the leadership out so you can get a new government put in place. But it's not like with Iraq. Iraq was a different situation. With Iraq, you could go in there and, I mean, it took us, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to decapitate the leadership there and send the military running. But Iran is a different story, because when you look at Iran's geography, a third of the world's oil passes right through there, through the Persian Gulf. You've got Kuwait up there, Iraq, all of these Gulf states. It goes through there. You've got the Strait of Hormuz. You've got the United Arab Emirates there on that peninsula, and Oman on the other side, and the Gulf of Oman, before you get down into open waters. A third of the oil. The United States, we don't have to have that oil anymore. Fracking has made it possible for us to become far more energy independent. Prices would definitely go up significantly if we didn't have access to that. So oil alone, oil profits alone, or the claim that we need to go into Iran and knock them off because they threaten to hold up the oil, that's so for national security's sake we need to do that. It's just bullcrap. And so we've got to look at what's going on here. Economic warfare is the opening step. This is economic warfare. The goal of economic warfare is to capture or otherwise control the supply of these critical economic resources that the other side has, so that the other side's military is drained of its resources, so that the intelligence agencies don't have the money they need. They can't operate at full efficiency. Iran is a much bigger territory than Iraq. Trying to get in there and attack would be so much more difficult, so much more difficult. A ground war would result in, if we had to have a ground war, you're looking at minimum, 500,000, half a billion U.S. troops would end up as casualties, either injured or killed in a ground war. It would be so horrible. So you've got to strangle them. You've got to strangle Iran. And that's what these economic sanctions have been doing. You wage an economic war to deprive the enemy forces of the money. You try and degrade their ability to defend themselves. And so a lot of what's been going on, I was saying for years, 2011, 2012, 2013, I was saying, I used to talk about Syria a lot on my show. But the point I always made with Syria is, guys, this is just a stepping stone. What you do with Syria is you create this huge quagmire. In fact, let me bring up Google Earth here. Give me a second to bring this up. Sorry, this is not stuff I had planned on talking about, but I want to show you this. Give me just a second. Come on, Google Earth. All right, here we go. So let's look at the geography real quick. Just take a quick scan of everything there. You've got Syria, you've got Turkey, which is also called Asia Minor. Here's Israel, here's Egypt, Jordan, right here. This is nothing. This is dead territory, basically. You've got Riyadh, Saudi. This is Saudi Arabia. Yemen down on the bottom. Here is Iraq. This great big territory is Iran. So when we get in here, you've got Kuwait, which used to be part of Iraq. It was carved out. You've got the Persian Gulf. You've got Bahrain, which is a tiny little island, a vassal of Saudi Arabia. You've got Qatar. You've got the UAE. The Emiratis are some pretty vicious people, the royal family there. You've got Oman. And this is where everything's going on. These are the coordinates I plugged in for where this is where the United States says that the drone was shot down. This is where Iran says the drone was shot down. But anyway, so you've got this corridor here, the Strait of Hormuz, opening up into the Gulf of Oman. If they can create a choke point here, you stop all of the shipping, the oil tankers. You're in trouble. And that's why over here on this side in Fujairah, see, to try and get around this, the concern for years was, oh, well, Iran can just put a bunch of mines here in the strait, and then nobody can get past there. Not only that, but the United States Fifth Fleet, the Fifth Naval Fleet, they're based over here in Bahrain. So if you can choke this off, you trap the Fifth Fleet, and you can stop the oil from going out. And back in the 1980s, when Iraq was fighting Iran, they had what were called the tanker wars, where Iraq was hitting some of the tankers that were transporting Iranian oil. Iran was hitting some of the tankers that was transporting Iraqi oil. They were called the tanker wars. So moving forward, what they figure out is, hey, you know what we can do is let's create a new oil, not refinery, although there's a refinery here, but let's create a new section over here in Fujairah, in Oman, a new port where we can store oil, and we'll transport oil over here and bypass the Strait of Hormuz. That way you take Iran out as a factor. And so that's what's going on. You've got here in Fujairah, you've got a lot. In fact, I don't even know if the satellites here will show it. Let's see. I don't know if this stuff is recent enough that it'll show the oil refineries or the oil storage. Yeah, there's some of it. See all of this. So what Iran is doing with the tankers that were hit, I'm open to the possibility that I haven't been able to get confirmation one way or another about remember the Japanese tanker and the Norwegian tanker that were hit? They were hit by mines in the Gulf of Oman, or at least maybe they were hit by mines. Some of the sailors said that they were hit by some kind of object above the water, a missile of some sort. But I'm at least open to the possibility that Iran did tag a couple of these tankers to show, look, just because you have this over here in Fujairah, don't you think that you have gotten out of the situation? Yeah, we can cut off the Strait of Hormuz, but we can still get your tankers over here. So while I don't see evidence to support the claim that Iran is responsible, even if evidence did come out that absolutely confirm, even if they came out and admitted it, I'm not seeing this as a terrible thing. What they're doing is saying we can fight back. We are not defenseless. We are not Iraq. You are not going to come in here and just knock us out and do like they did with Hussein, take Saddam Hussein and kill him, hang him, and then leak the video out publicly. So Iran is saying in all the various ways that it can, yes, you are committing economic warfare against us, but we are not powerless. We can stand up to you. And they know that it's important to stand up to the United States sanctions now because of where economic sanctions lead to. Economic sanctions, this economic warfare, is a stepping stone to the hot war. So if you know that's like if you're at a bar or somewhere and you're having an argument with somebody and you see the person's jaw start to clench and then they ball up their fist, it doesn't take rocket scientists to know what comes next. You're going to get punched. This guy has lost his cool. He's getting ready to take a swing. You don't wait until the guy takes the swing before you either step back or make preparations. Iran sees that the United States has its fist balled up and is getting ready to take a swing. When you say warfare, economic warfare, it's not a misnomer. The word warfare is a legitimate way of describing what these heavy sanctions are. Economic war tactics are very much a part of classic military war strategy. Even Sun Tzu, let me see if I've got my yeah, here it is. Even Sun Tzu's Art of War talks about this. Give me a second here. Let me see if I can find it. All right, so he writes in here, again, if the campaign is protracted, the resources of the state will not be equal to the strain. When their substance is drained away, the peasantry will be afflicted by heavy exactions. And that's like taxes or whatever. With this loss of substance and exhaustion of strength, the homes of the people will be stripped bare, and 3/10 of their income will be dissipated, while government expenses for broken chariots, worn-out horses, breastplates and helmets, bows and arrows, spears and shields, protective mantles, draught oxen, and heavy wagons will amount to 4/10 of its total revenue. So in other words, what Sun Tzu is saying is drain the financial resources of your opponents, of the enemy, in advance of the attack. Because the state will be required to increase the financial burden on the peasants, on the people, to make up for these financial losses. Because you've got to repair he's talking about breastplates and helmets and, ox pulled wagons and stuff like that have to be repaired and replaced. But it's the same in modern times. Just, substitute, they just lost a $130 million drone, right? You got to replace these things. So economic sanctions are designed to bleed the nation, to drain their resources. And if you can inflict heavy financial losses on the enemy, what happens is you have a degradation of the strength and quality, not only of the overall economy and the military assets themselves, but you also have the problem of a really pissed off peasantry that is seeing their taxes get raised to make up the difference, or they are seeing, in the case of modern times, different kinds of welfare things, pensions are depleted, and it puts the squeeze on the people. And so the people who are unable to turn around and attack the United States, what do? They go after their own government and say, you're not providing for us. So there's a lot of different things here. So with going back to, let me just go back real quick. I forgot to make my point about what they're doing over here with the issue of Syria. Syria was not just about Syria. I always said that Syria was mostly about Iran. It was about a preparation for Iran. And the reason for that is the biggest sponsor of Syria was not Russia. All along it was Iran. It's always been Iran. And so Iran takes a large portion of its budget, and it funds those proxies that stand against the Zionists, so that they don't have to fight with their own, Revolutionary Guard. So in Syria, you've got, coming from Lebanon over here, you've got, well, here's Damascus, Syria here. Here's Lebanon. The Lebanese Hezbollah, they are pouring into Syria to fight the Western proxies. Al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all of these maniacs. Then you've got the Kurds up here that were and still are being used. So Iran is providing the funding. They're buying the weapons. They're sending some of their own soldiers over. But they're dumping tons of money in to fight over here. And that's the goal. Why do you think this Syrian so-called civil war went on for so long and is still going on? It's supposed to be a quagmire. It is to deplete Iran of its resources. And so you see what's going on down here. Same thing. Iran is funding the Houthis, who are Shiites down in the capital of Sana'a. So the war that's going on between Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and Yemen is a proxy war. It is Iran providing the weaponry and the support to the Houthis down here so that they can fight off these Sunnis. Over here, you've got Iran providing all of their support to these largely Shiite militias, the Hezbollah and so forth, in Syria. And then you have, over here in Gaza, you've got the Palestinian Islamic Jihad that gets reinforcements of money and rockets from Iran. So these guys are on one team, and they're fighting against Iran, trying to deplete Iran. But Iran's getting some support from some different places as well. Iran has a lot of financial support from Russia and from China. So we already are in a kind of simulated world war already. You don't have the major powers. You don't have Russia and China fighting directly against the United States. But it's the continuation of this decades-old, century-old almost, Cold War, where you've got the major powers fighting against the United States and the UK for control of the resources. And so China and Russia, they're more than happy to have Iran do the fighting. And Iran is more than happy to have their proxies do the fighting. So deplete. Keep Iran fighting on as many fronts as you can. Keep them fighting. That's the goal here. And because this was not yielding the kind of results that they wanted, Iran didn't fall. in Syria, it wasn't working. So Israel starts stepping up their attacks. Because remember, Israel, the way that Israel fights is they get the bigger guy to go do the fighting. Israel, they're cowards. I mean, they're sneaky, and maybe you could say they're smart in that sense, that they get others to do their fighting for them. If you want to use call that smart. They're morally bankrupt, but you at least have to credit them with being, knowing how to fight dirty at least. But because they were not making the advances in Syria, Russia stepped in, seeing that Syria was on the verge of total collapse. So Russia stepped in to supplement what Iran was already doing. And so that helped hold things off. But so Israel starts their air assaults, and they kept it quiet for a long time. They had coordination, intelligence, logistical support, all kinds of support from the United States as they're going in, carrying out attacks against Iranian forces and Iranian-backed proxies in Syria. Over and over. You remember that, guys? Just this last year, all of those strikes still going on. In fact, I have intel that Israel was, to use Trump's phrase, locked in or cocked and loaded or whatever he said. They were ready when Trump's assault, his strikes on Iran were getting ready to take place yesterday. Israel was going to carry out a new huge barrage of strikes against Syria. And that got called off because Trump backed out of the Iranian strike. So where we're at right now is Iran is saying we can't. We cannot. It's either we are going to go the path of Iraq and end up toppled, with our leaders killed, with our nation turned into, what Iraq has been turned into, what Libya has been turned into, or we have to fight. They know they can't beat the United States long term even in a ground war. Yeah, it would bleed us quite a bit. Wouldn't be easy, but ultimately we would win. So they can't beat us that way. So they have to use unconventional means. They have to do what they know is going to matter. And so that's why I'm open to this idea that Iran could be really. A lot of people say, oh, Iran, everybody's framing Iran. Iran hasn't done anything there in the Strait of Hormuz or anything. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's true. I haven't been able to confirm it one way or another. I've got my thoughts and everything. But this is, if I was Iran's leadership, I would be doing these things. I would be taking the pot shots. I would be showing, look, there are things that we can do, and don't think we're not willing to do it. We're not cowards. We will get out here and we'll mess with your oil. We will mess with your ships. We will shoot down your drones. We are not afraid of you. And remember, what was it, about a month or so ago, when Pompeo was all like, oh, we look at this, and Bolton was out there, we're going to attack Iran because they're getting ready they're threatening the United States. Well, what it was Iran was moving assets around because the United States was getting assets in place. And Iran says, nope, and they move their military forces, they move their proxies around. And they communicate through their actions. We'll drop some freaking missiles on U.S. troops, and Iran could take out a lot of U.S. troops if they wanted to, because dummy Trump has allowed these warmongers to build up and build up and build up, We have so many thousands of U.S. troops out there right now, and the American people don't even know it. The wives and some husbands of a lot of military, they know it because their loved ones are out there deployed and they're not supposed to talk about it. But I get plenty of people, plenty of wives send me information, let me know what's going on, where their hubbies have been deployed to and what's going on. So I'm not cheering for the Iranians. I'm no fan of the mullahs, for sure. I long for the day when there is a more I don't want to say democratic because that's not the right way to say it. More freedom from the religious rule in Iran. There are definitely things that Iran can do better and should do better for the sake of the people. But when you look at the alternative, which is to let the Zionists take control and turn their nation into a hellhole like Libya, it's not a hard decision to make of whose side I'm going to take in this. So anyway, you look at the Ayatollahs there in Iran. Some of them have done some very bad things, ordered some very bad things. But at the same time, take a look over there at the only democracy in the Middle East, so-called, Israel. The Likudniks in the Israeli Knesset, they're modern-day Nazis. And I know people are like, oh, don't say that about the National Socialists. Listen, you know it's bad when it's an insult to the Nazis. When the Nazis are like, hey, don't compare us to them. You know they're bad. Israel is a monster, a beast. So anyway, that's why that's even if Iran is not responsible for any of these things going, and it's 100% the Zionists carrying out false flags and all that. Still, they know. The Zionists know you cannot knock off the Iranians without a fight, without one hell of a fight. Because you attack Iran, and they have the resources to. I mean, look, they've got assets in Gaza. They've got them in Syria. They've got them in Lebanon. They can fight back. They may not be able to fight in a straight up, face-to-face duke it out with the United States directly, but they can do a good deal. So I was looking at this is yesterday's paper. Let me see if I can switch my screen here. So this one is U.S.-Iran risk wider conflict. And this Wall Street Journal article was written, this front page, it was written before the news came out that Trump had, screwed the pooch there with the attack that was going to take place. But what they say here is the U.S. and Iran edged closer to a military confrontation on Thursday as Iranian forces shot down an American recon drone, and President Trump charged that Tehran had made a, quote, very big mistake. So this goes to print, and they're not talking about how Donald Trump screwed it up, right? But they are beating the drums of war. Boom, 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 boom. And encouraging this. But then the attack that was almost underway didn't take place. Trump knew that morning, he knew Friday morning, that there was going to be an attack. He had approved it that morning. These plans have been in place for a long time. It's not like they're like, oh, a drone got shot down. What should we do? We're the U.S. military. We haven't given any thought whatsoever to what we might do if we get into a tiff with Iran. They had these plans drawn up for a long time. Bolton had commissioned, remember, Bolton was convening these secret meetings with CIA and Pentagon officials and everybody, and Trump's media's out there asking Trump, what's Bolton doing? And he's like, I don't know. Are you going to war with Iran? I hope not. I'm only the president. I don't know what's going on. So Trump orders this strike against Iran. And then he backed off. Why was that? Israel was cheering him on. Netanyahu was out there. You watch this. If you follow Israeli media at all, watch that cocky grin on Netanyahu's face. Netanyahu is a terrible poker player. He has so many tells. When he thinks that he's getting ready to do something big, he can't hide it. And I remember seeing that yesterday, early in the day, or maybe it was Thursday. Him and his kind of like, half grin and real cocky. I'm like, that guy's up to something. There's getting ready to be strikes on Syria, is what I was thinking. And then the articles come out where he's saying, oh yeah, we asked the international community to hold the United States, to hold Iran accountable, support the United States. We cannot let them, hold the world hostage, or whatever the, propaganda out of Netanyahu's mouth is. By the way, congratulations to those prosecutors in Israel that found his crooked wife guilty of corruption. And he's next, by the way. Not that the majority of the people of Israel actually care. Kind of like here in the United States, only half the people seem to care that Trump is, corrupt, but whatever. So what happened? Why did he call it off? Trump says, is it on this? Let me see if it's, oh no, it's on this one. This is from today's. Trump's Iran move eases tensions. Rising tension between the U.S. and Iran eased at least temporarily on Friday after President Trump said he called off a planned military strike in order to spare Iranian lives, a development that opened the way for offers of diplomacy from other world leaders. And then Mr. Trump said he decided late Thursday to halt a military strike on Iran only 10 minutes before its scheduled start, after he learned that it would kill 150 people. Bullcrap. Look, if you're a Trump supporter out there, I want you to think about this with me logically for a second. You are the president of the United States. You have been gunning for war with Iran for over a year. Plans have been drawn up for all kinds of strikes, all kinds of things. A drone gets shot down. A U.S. drone gets shot down. U.S. response is needed. You sit down with your military brass and they tell you all of these different options. Here's what you can do. Here's what we recommend. And you pick one. And you say, let's do that. And so the assets are all put in place. You've got the naval warships in place. You've got the jets in the air. You have communicated to Israel and to other allies what you're getting ready to do. But then just a minute or two before it's going to be carried out, you think, I wonder if anyone's going to get killed in this. Let me ask a general. Hey, general, how many people might die? Oh, 150 or so. I hadn't thought about this, that in the process of carrying out an act of war, people might die. Now, Donald Trump is a moron, but do you really believe that he's that stupid that that at no point did any military leader briefing him on this stuff, nobody on his war council that was sitting there in these meetings deliberating these matters with him, nor he, not a single person at any point talked about how there might be casualties. I don't believe it. So Donald Trump is lying to the American people. And you got to really be swilling that purple Kool-Aid if you think that he's telling the truth, that the reason that he backed off was because he realized that some Iranians might die. There's a little more truth to it than that, including the fact that Donald Trump was already vacillating. Donald Trump has two things. He wants a legacy. He wants to be a wartime president. He wants that legacy. We all remember which presidents do we remember? George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, FDR. Why do we remember? Why are these the names that stand out? They were wartime presidents. Donald Trump cares about his legacy. He wants a war. He wants to be that tough guy. He wants to go and put that nose up in the air and, and be recognized by the generals as a great commander-in-chief. But at the same time, he also wants to win in 2020. You cannot win in 2020 if you have started a highly unpopular war, especially when you campaigned on promising to get the United States out of these kinds of conflicts. Trump's already lost. I don't care what anyone says. 2020, he's not going to win. Can't happen. He's already electoral college. Just add up the numbers. He's already lost the handful of people that helped him win. Remember, Trump lost the popular vote by a significant margin. He only won because there were a handful of states that turned from blue to red. Those states, which are traditionally blue, they've already, the people are furious over the decline in their paychecks and everything else. Michigan and elsewhere, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, a lot of these Rust Belt kind of areas, he's lost them. There's no way he can win in 2020. Or at least, I mean, he would have to be up against Elizabeth Warren or somebody like that for him to win. I mean, there would have to be somebody colossally horrible on the Democrat side for him to win in 2020. So he knows this. Remember, he just fired a bunch of his pollsters because the internal polling data was leaked, showing that he is behind the first. He came in number 6 in popularity in head-to-head matches. He lost in head-to-head matches from his own internal polling against the top 6 Democrats that are running. That's bad. That's real bad. So, when they leaked it and he started firing them over that. So Trump knows he's got to play it right if he's gonna win in 2020. So while you've got John Bolton and Mike Pompeo over in one ear, or the devil on this shoulder saying, go to war. You've got Bibi Netanyahu, you've got Sheldon Adelson, you've got all of the Zionists who got you into office for the first term, telling you to do this. While on the other shoulder, you've got Rand Paul and Tucker Carlson and others that are more traditional kind of libertarian Republicans saying, this is horrible. This is against our values, not only as a party, but just it's unconstitutional and it's going to hurt you. And so he's like, who do I listen to? And so he's vacillating all day long. You can see him in all of these interviews throughout Thursday when he was being asked, are you going to do something? Are you going to do something? Wait and see. We'll see. I don't know. Whatever. He was not his normal confident self. He was very rattled. So in his ploy, trying to get Iran to give him something, give him an out. He wanted them to agree that they would come back to the negotiating table on the Iran deal that he backed out of and agree to negotiate. And the way that he communicated to them was through actually an Omani representative, spoke with through Oman, communicated to Iran to communicate to to the Ayatollah. I'm getting ready to attack you. The United States is getting ready to attack. If you want that attack to be called off, you need to negotiate. And they said, screw you. And it rattled him. And so he called off the attack. Not because he was worried about 150 people dying. Think of the tens of thousands of people that Donald Trump is responsible for killing in Syria, in Yemen, in Sudan. He doesn't care about human life. If he did, he would not be giving Saudi Arabia the weapons they need to carry out genocide against the people of Yemen. 150 people, it made me think that's not proportionate. He bluffed and Iran called him on it. In fact, I think it's in today's, let me show you this. So the Wall Street Journal, who owns the Wall Street Journal? Rupert Murdoch, right? Who's Rupert Murdoch? Rupert Murdoch is a big-time Zionist. He owns the Wall Street Journal, owns Fox News. He sits on the board of Genie Energy, which is an Israeli energy company. He sits on the board with Lord Jacob Rothschild from the UK, with Vice President Dick Cheney, with former CIA Director James Woolsey, and with a handful of other Zionists. The goal of Genie Oil is they've already been given the contracts to take the resources in the Golan Heights, but they need to secure it more. But Rupert Murdoch stands to make a buttload of money there in the Golan Heights. Coincidentally, Donald Trump just said a month or so ago, guess what? The Golan Heights, that should be Israel's. Yeah, that's Israel's. What a crooked human being Donald Trump is. But anyway, so you think that Rupert Murdoch might have some vested interest in getting Donald Trump to carry out this attack on Iran? Of course. Of course. So it was too late. The cover story, what they do is Saturday morning, they put out this. This is the Wall Street Journal's editorial board. The editors of the Wall Street Journal put out their own opinion piece. And they're mocking Trump. This is not a letter to the editor from just a reader. This is the Wall Street Journal. Iran calls Trump's bluff. President Trump called off a military strike against Iran in mid-mission Thursday, and his supporters and even some of his critics are hailing it as an act of restraint and courage. The question for American interests is whether Iran and other adversaries will see it instead as a sign of weakness and indecision. And then they go on and they mock him. They mock him for saying that we were cocked and loaded, ready to retaliate. They say, while the planes were in the air, he asked, oh, by the way, this is hard to take at face value. More likely, he changed his mind because he had second thoughts about the military and political consequences of engaging in a conflict he promised as a candidate to avoid. And they say that he has put American lives in jeopardy. They're saying that Iran is squeezing the United States. They say the great weakness of Donald Trump's foreign policy is its volatility. He's unpredictable to a fault. He has doubted his own Venezuela policy from the first week he signed off on it. He called Kim Jong-un crazy, but now says he's a swell guy. He signed a trade deal with Mexico, then threatened it with new tariffs. On Iran, he has adopted a policy goal favored by hawkish Senator Lindsey Graham, but wants to use only the means of isolationist Senator Rand Paul to achieve it. He warned that, quote, if Iran wants to fight, that will be the official end of Iran. But he lets Iran shoot down a drone and interfere with international shipping. If Mr. Trump's real policy is Mr. Paul's, then he should be honest with Americans and return to the Obama nuclear deal. In the meantime, Iran appears to be calling Mr. Trump's bluff. So they're shaming him. I mean, they know how to get to Donald Trump. You hit his ego. Donald Trump's got a huge ego. And they're attacking. The Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch's paper, is egging him on, trying to get Trump to see that, hey, the biggest financial paper in the country, we're saying that you're an idiot. We're saying you're a coward. We're saying you're putting American lives in jeopardy by not going to war. Iran's got your number. You act tough, but then you go and do what Senator Rand Paul wants. So they're going after him. The Wall Street Journal. So Donald Trump botched this. I'm glad he didn't go through with it, but I am not going to join in with those people that are out there like talking about how he deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. Donald Trump is the one who put this all in motion. Donald Trump is the one who backed out of the Iran deal. Donald Trump is the one who's been threatening Iran. Donald Trump is the one who is withholding money and strangling the Iranian economy, which is causing all kinds of problems for the people. And he's the one who gave the order to attack Iran. So don't talk to me about how it's so great that he's a man of peace and prudence. He chickened out. That's what it is. He is a vacillating coward. He never should have given that order to attack. And it could still take place. That's the problem. But you know how it's gonna end up happening? He's going to say, Bibi, you need to take the charge here. You need to go front and center. We'll back you, but I can't do it. Trump will go and he'll hit Iran in this next week with some new sanctions or some new whatever. Who knows what'll happen? But the idea here is for Israel to do what they did in the 1980s with Iraq. 1980s, Israel flew their jets over and attacked Iraq's nuclear facilities and blew them up. And then zipped out of there. And that's going to be the idea here with Iran. Israel go in, try and shoot them, but they can't do it without great risk. And even if they do carry it out, they're wimps. They need the United States to back them. So Donald Trump is going to be willing to spill American blood for the sake of Israel. So Trump supporters out there, what's your explanation for all of this? Is Trump just a great leader? And this is 4D chess strategy, and him backing out at the last second is part of a grand strategy? I mean, I've seen some people saying that. Are you not starting to see that this guy is out of his depth? U.S. politics and international relations is a very different thing from high stakes real estate deals. Yeah, Jad Dean says Bolton must go. You guys make sure and check out my Blackstone Intelligence store, blackstone.intel.com. Blackstone-intelligence.com. Let me just pull it up here. I don't even remember the name of it. Let me show you my John Bolton shirt. Give me 1 second here. All right. Okay, if you go to blackstoneintel.com, just click the link, and here's the John Bolton Smash the Stash No More NeoCon Wars t-shirt. Support Blackstone Intelligence. Buy a shirt. And also show your, wear it proud, BDS, end Israeli apartheid. Remember the USS Liberty. Oh, and speaking of which, I don't know that I have ever showed this on the show, but so I've been in contact with some of the USS Liberty survivors, right? Some of the sailors. And Ron Kukal, who is the chaplain of the USS Liberty Association, he sent me this. This is a really, really nice medallion. Let me see if I can get that to focus. Focus. Come on. There we go. USS Liberty, and you see all the names around the site. Also on the back. These are the names around the outer edge. Come on, focus. Sorry, I'm trying to get this autofocus to... Anyway, the names along the edge, those are the names of the 34 sailors who were killed by Israel on the USS Liberty. And I'm proud to say you guys did a great job responding to my request to go subscribe to their YouTube page. Phenomenal response. It started out with 54 and, oh geez, what did it get up to? I don't even know. Let me look real quick and see. They had about 54 people, and I'm like, why do they only have 54 after a year or so? Why did they only have 54 people? Yeah, so it's up to almost 1,300 subscribers. You guys subbed to them, and that really, I got some messages about it from the guys, from the sailors. They appreciated it. That you all cared enough to show your support, and people were leaving supportive comments on their videos. So make sure, and in fact, let me put there, if you have not already subscribed, please subscribe to their channel. I'll put it in the chat here. That's the link there to the USS Liberty Veterans Association. Show these guys support. Subscribe to their page, and give them a nice comment on a video. So Ron Kukal, you may see him, his testimonial on there. Ron is a friend. We talk from time to time. Not met him in person yet. I'd love to sit down with him in person. So anyway, let me take a minute here and recognize, while we're on it, before I play the Tucker Carlson stuff, which is great. I want to take a minute to recognize people that have been supporting me. As you know, YouTube flat out demonetized my entire channel. Not a video here or there. And it's crazy because there's a lot of YouTubers that are like me that are still monetized. I don't get it. I don't, not that I want them demonetized, but why pick on me? So I'm totally demonetized. I have not made 1 cent from YouTube in, I don't know, what has it been, about 3 or 4 weeks now. So huge hit in the my monthly income. Not just from that, but they also suppress all my videos so heavily that I have lost about a third of my other income as well. So I'm down to roughly about 25% of what my income was 4 or 5 months ago. It's been pretty significant. So when somebody takes the time to send me something like Mary from Alberta, Canada, who sent a donation, but also just a kind, thoughtful note, little kitten, and sent a card and shared her thoughts. I really appreciated that. Thank you so much, Mary. And before that had been Mildred, who sent me this one from Texas. Thank you so much, Mildred. And I also want to, since people can't give me the super chat donations anymore, let me thank those of you who have been making donations through Patreon and PayPal. Give me a second. I just want to read off these names and say thank you. Bear with me here. I just want to reload it. And I'm just going to skip back to since the 15th, because I haven't done a whole lot of live streams the last week or so because of travels and everything. So I'm just going to recognize all of you, and I'll only give your first name because I haven't asked prior permission to give out names. Ryan from Australia. Matthew. You know who you are, Matthew. James. Brian. BC Sourdough Technologies. Zarin. Black Onyx. Daniel, who says, Daniel from Germany, who says, love what you're doing, keep it up, don't let them get to you. We'll try to support you from now on, not only with views, but also with some capitalist fluid. Greetings from Germany. Thank you so much, Daniel. I appreciate it. From Scott. Scott says, I know it's not a lot, Jake, but I appreciate the work. I will do more to spread the word as much as I can in the future. Every little bit helps. Thank you, Scott. Very kind. MR, thank you for your donation. Very kind. Robert, who says, best wishes for the future, Jake. Kind regards. Thank you, sir. Celia, or Scylla, thank you so much for that. Gregory says, I hope you'll consider speaking at Anarchapulco. You know a few of the past speakers. It would be great to shake your hand, brother. Your supporter. I would enjoy doing Anarchapulco 2020. I'd like it. And I am talking with a couple of guys from Anarchapulco who, we're talking a little bit about maybe me speaking there. But thank you, Gregory. Stott, thank you. Reynardus, thank you. Kenneth. Zoe, who says, I'm a huge fan from Montreal. Watch your videos religiously. Thank you for all you do. It's hugely appreciated and valued. Thank you so much. Samuel, thank you. Shirley. Joseph, who wrote, thanks for enlightening me. Richard. Gretex Systems. Very sad about what YouTube and others are doing to you. Be careful. Absolutely. Paul. Thank you, Paul. And those are donations that people have given on PayPal because I can't get super chats or anything anymore. But also, I want to run back to just thank the people that made pledges on Patreon. And I know for some of you are like, oh, hurry up, but you don't know how much I appreciate the support. It really is a big deal. So, starting on the 15th, Flick Off. Thank you. Thank you for your pledge. Jeff edited his pledge from $5 to $25. Brad, thank you, Brad. Majid, thank you. Derek Wyatt, Lawyer for the People, he upped his pledge. Thank you so much. Derek, sure do appreciate it. Paul, thank you very much. Richard, thank you. No Longer a Slave to Fear. Dennis, Nick, Maureen, Amanda increased her Patreon pledge. Thank you, Amanda. Chandani, perhaps. Thank you. Gregory, Mohammed, Omar, Simon, Kevin, Marvin, Zaki increased the pledge. Simon, Kevin. Oh, yeah, I think this is just repeating. So thank you to you guys. I appreciate it. All right. Now, how about we jump into, and if anybody out there would like to support my work, I am going to be traveling the week of July 4th. I'll be speaking at a Palestinian conference in Washington, D.C. So if any of you want to support my work, now listen, as I go around and I do this stuff, it's not just speaking. I give away a lot of materials as I go around too. So for example, I've got, I got a box of these kind of brochures. Here, let me pull one out. I buy a lot of literature that I give out when I go around speaking. This one, A Very Brief Introduction to the Occupation. This one is by Trua, and Trua is it's a Jewish group, rabbis that call for the human rights of Palestinians and speak out against the Zionists. It's also, so this is also got testimonies from Breaking the Silence. These are former Israeli Defense Forces military who basically go out and tell the truth about what they were forced to do and how awful it was, and they speak out against Israel. So anyway, these booklets have got stats, information, and for those that are like looking at this from a biblical perspective, saying, oh, we should support Israel because God says the Jews are great or whatever. These Jewish rabbis are actually quoting from Scripture and explaining how the Zionists are not the ones you should be supporting, and how you're actually not supporting God when you're supporting the Zionists. It's got testimonies from Palestinians. So these things, I buy this stuff, and in the past, I've always just given this stuff out at my own expense. And I want to continue to be able to do it. But the problem is, with my income choked off, it just makes it really, really hard. Really hard to afford that kind of stuff. So when you guys make donations to me, know that it's going to good purposes. Helps me feed my kids, and it helps me to spread the word about the rights of the Palestinians and my anti-war message. So anyway. Well, let me pull up the Tucker Carlson stuff here, and I may need to turn my volume up, son, because it's not very loud. So you guys will have to let me know in the comments if this isn't loud enough. So we'll watch a few minutes of this.
He stood on the brink of cataclysm after weeks of slow escalation and without a single vote from the Congress. The United States came within minutes of war with Iran. In response to the destruction of an unmanned drone, American forces nearly launched an airstrike on Iranian targets. According to some reports, our planes were literally in the air. But in the end, it didn't happen. The president pulled back. This morning, he explained why.
They came and they said, sir, we're ready to go. We'd like a decision. I said, I want to know something before you go. How many people will be killed? In this case, Iranians. I said, how many people are going to be killed? Sir, I'd like to get back to you on that. Great people, these generals. They said, came back, said, sir, approximately 150. And I thought about it for a second. I said, you know what? They shot down an unmanned drone, plane, whatever you want to call it. And here we are sitting with 150 dead people. That would have taken place probably within a half an hour after I said go ahead. Yeah. And I didn't like it. I didn't think it was proportionate.
How many people will be killed? The most basic of all questions, but a question that's too rarely asked by leaders contemplating war.
Now I'm going to skip forward about a minute here. And this is the best part of the best part of the show is going to be about 5 minutes into this. Toward the end of this, Tucker Carlson, the clip of him just sticking it to John Bolton is great. But anyway, I'm just going to sit back here and play this and let you guys listen. Tucker Carlson just smacks John Bolton up and down, and Carlson has got Donald Trump's ear. So thank goodness for someone like Tucker Carlson, Rand Paul, these people who are anti-war, anti-intervention, who are trying to stand up to people like Lindsey Graham and others that are trying to push the president into war. Anyway, here we go.
Only in foreign policy circles do people say things that stupid. In fact, last night was a high point in the Trump presidency. Bombing Iran would have ended his political career in a minute. There'd be no chance of re-election after that. Ill-advised wars are like doing cocaine. The initial rush rises your poll numbers, but the crash is inevitable. And in this case, it would be horrible. The hangover from an Iraq war would last years. Iran is not Syria or Iraq. It's a big, rich, sophisticated country with an ancient culture and a cohesive population. In some ways, it's an impressive place, not at all like the chintzy prefab capitals of the Arab world, like Riyadh or Dubai. We could beat Iran, but it would not be easy. It would cost trillions of dollars. Many thousands of Americans likely would die. China would love it. They'd be the only winners in that conflict. Donald Trump was elected president precisely to keep us out of disasters like war with Iran. So how did we get so close to starting one? Simple. The NeoCons still wield enormous power in Washington. They don't care what the cost of a war with Iran is. They certainly don't care what the effect on Trump's political fortunes might be. They despise Donald Trump. Now, one of their key allies is the National Security Advisor of the United States. John Bolton is an old friend of Bill Kristol's. Together they helped plan the Iraq War. When Bolton made it to the White House, the NeoCons cheered. Left-wing New York Times columnist Bret Stephens took a break from attacking Donald Trump to celebrate his hiring. Stephens assured MSNBC viewers that John Bolton was a great choice because he would push the president toward war.
He is not the sort of caricaturish hawk that he's been made out to be in some corners of the press. I think someone like Bolton is going to restrain the isolationist impulses that have been really at the heart of Trump's foreign policy thinking.
Got that? John Bolton is going to restrain Donald Trump from avoiding war. And of course, that's exactly what he's tried to do from the very first day. Shortly before Bolton took his new job, we invited him on this show and asked about some of his many, many previous foreign policy positions. Watch as Bolton denies ever being wrong, ever, about anything, not even a little bit. So you've called for regime change in Iraq, Libya, Iran, and Syria. In the first two countries, we've had regime change. And obviously it's been, I'd say a disaster. I think we agree.
No, I don't agree with that. And let me.
You don't think it's been a disaster?
No, I think you need to understand.
Yeah.
Is that life is complicated in the Middle East. And when you say, well, the overthrow of Saddam Hussein was a mistake, is simplistic.
I would argue that I'm the one who understands how complicated it is, but just my view.
It's your long experience in foreign policy, I know.
Better record than yours, I would say.
He slayed him.
Got that?
We're going to play that again.
Just my view. Disaster. I think we agree.
No, I don't agree with that. And let me.
You don't think it's been a disaster?
No, I think you need to understand.
Yeah.
Is that life is complicated in the Middle East. And when you say, well, the overthrow of Saddam Hussein was a mistake, is simplistic.
I would argue that I'm the one who understands how complicated it is, but just my view.
It's your long experience in foreign policy, I know.
Better record than yours, I would say. Got that? Hillary Clinton's toppling of the Libyan government was not a disaster, says John Bolton. Keep in mind there are literally slave markets operating in the streets of Tripoli right now. No problem, though. Bolton's fine with that. He's fine with the outcome in Iraq, too. That wasn't a disaster either. According to John Bolton, it was a raging success. We killed hundreds of thousands of people, lost thousands of our own troops, spent more than $1 trillion, all to eliminate a WMD threat that, despite John Bolton's assurances, never existed in the first place. Bolton is glad we did all that, really happy about it. That's demented. Normal people don't talk like that. There's nothing normal about John Bolton. Check out this piece of tape, recently uncovered, in which Bolton promises that we're going to overthrow the government of Iran. Keep in mind that this was filmed long before the Iranians shot down a single drone.
I have said for over 10 years since coming to these events that the declared policy of the United States of America should be the overthrow of the mullah's regime in Tehran. And that's why before 2019, we here will celebrate in Tehran. Thank you very much.
In other words, last night has been in the works for years. John Bolton is a kind of bureaucratic tapeworm. Try as you might, you can't expel him. He seems to live forever in the bowels of the federal agencies, periodically reemerging to cause pain and suffering, but critically somehow never suffering himself. His life really is Washington in a nutshell. Blunder into obvious catastrophes again and again, refuse to admit blame, and then demand more of the same. That's the John Bolton life cycle. In between administration jobs are always cushy think tank posts, paid speaking gigs, cable news contracts. War may be a disaster for America, but for John Bolton and his fellow neocons, it is always good business.
That's it. Bureaucratic tapeworm. Pretty good. So anyway, speak truth to power. And Tucker's still got a show, but you know, the Zionists have really organized against him. They've tried to take him down hard a few times now. And who knows what, you know, how long he'll be able to keep doing this, but at least for now, I'm glad that there is that voice out there speaking out against the John Boltons of the world. And I tried to do my part at the Red Pill Expo talking about Bolton myself. In fact, give me a second here. Let me see if I can cue that part up. Let me just a second here. All right.
Boy, I mean, the poverty these people live in is sickening. IDF doesn't like me. They even detained me for a while over there. took my passport, put me on a list. So anyway, I'm going to skip forward because I'm at the end. I need 4 or 5 volunteers, real quick. So I need 4 of you to come up on stage, real fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. We got 5 people. Come on up here. All right. I got to be fast here. All right. Let me see. Let's get everyone up here. Vote real quick. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. Who's the he-man in the group? Or he-woman, she-woman? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Call it out. Who's top? 5. Guess what? You're John Bolton. Here we go. Here we go. Each of these pencils represents one of you, one of us. John Bolton. Let's see how tough you are. Break it. Break that person. Snap it in half. See if you can do it. Yeah, take it in your own hand, snap it. Snap it. Snap it. Snap it. All right, not too hard to defeat us one-on-one, is it? Here, you just red-pilled those people, you just red-pilled those people, you red-pilled those people, and you red-pilled those people. Now, bind them together. Put them together. Put everyone's together. All right, John Bolton, go break them. Do your best.
She was a good sport.
Break his hand on the rest of us. We need to become one strong unit. Set aside your differences. Look at the various. It doesn't matter. Anarchists, progressives. I don't care what your beliefs are. You have the same enemies I do. You have the same enemies here. The same enemies trying to get us into a war with Iran for no bloody reason other than we want to go over there and steal their oil. Right? I'm going to finish with this. And this makes it a little silly, but I want to see it on camera. Not in our names anymore. We need to stand up against the military-industrial complex, these powerful multinationals that manipulate us, that take our State Department policy through the Council of Foreign Relations, twist our policy, and get us into trying to topple Venezuela, or Syria, or the successful coup in Ukraine. No more war! No more war! I want you to stand up and say it with me! Stand up! No more war! No more war! No more war! No more war! Thank you, everybody!
All right. Actually, that the lady that helped out Kimberly, who was up on stage and volunteered unwittingly to be John Bolton. She was actually, I talked with her quite a bit. She was one of the survivors of the Route 91 shooting massacre there in Las Vegas. And I got to hear her story and her talking about where she was at and where she ran to and the people that she saw get hit. And so I really enjoyed visiting with her and learning some facts about things from her. And speaking of Vegas, I'll just mention this real quick. There's a new contact that I'm making that I don't know. I may end up not talking about it. I got to vet the information, but there's a family that is that today, actually, someone through my wife contacted me. A family that was at the festival or at the music concert, and the family. At least this is what I'm being told. I haven't spoken with them yet. But they are among the people that saw someone on the ground shooting. And because one of their children, who is a young teenager, witnessed it, witnessed a shooter on the ground, they're very concerned. And so they've never gone public or anything, but but anyway, I think there's some interest there in sharing their story. So they kind of, I've been invited to speak with them, and honestly, it's one of those where I until I interview somebody, it's I don't know what to think. The fact that this is one of the witnesses is a young person, I don't know. I don't know how credible the testimony will be, but still, I want to talk with them and see what the story is, see what they know. So anyway, I may not be making videos on the Vegas stuff anymore out of the circumstances, but I do continue to talk with people and gather information on that. But anyway, so I guess that's going to be it for this show. I want to thank all of you that have hung out with me over this last hour and 45 minutes. Very kind of you to spend your Saturday afternoon with me. If you're able to support my work, I love your support on paypal.me/endtimesnewsreport or patreon.com/endtimesnewsreport. Love all of you, each and every one of you, and I can't wait to get out there at some more of these events and meet more of you in person. Thank you all. Have a great Saturday and hope you have a blessed Sunday. For Blackstone Intelligence, I'm Jake Morphonios.